Hi, everybody, and welcome to the 5 People on the Go, the show that's all about tools and approaches for success from the most brilliant people. My name is Meitar Zahavi. I'm your host, and today we have Osnat Benari, who is a
product consultant,
speaker, and author. Yeah, this is actually very cool. Starting from scratch, this is what we're going to talk about today, how we can reinvent ourselves.
Yeah.
So let's start from understanding, how do you even get to this topic? It's so big, how do you reinvent yourself? So tell us.
Yeah. So I'll start with the fact that I didn't want to write a book about that. I actually wanted to write a book, like a professional book about product management. And slowly I drifted to write about career. So I needed to kind of calibrate it multiple times. A book does not just come like that. It is a process. And the initial thought was to write a product management guide on how to manage your career, because we do have methods on how we build products. And then I was thinking if we could have a method to reinvent ourselves. And so that was the original one, just like a product manager, did research, and then everybody really liked the topic of reinventing yourself, the topic of starting something from zero, but no one really knew what product management is. So I needed to calibrate the name, and the starting from scratch started to be something that people were saying. I started from scratch. I reinvented myself. I was something that I wasn't there before. So I changed the name to Starting from Scratch. It was actually very organic what happened. And then I went into like a deep search in my past of how I reinvented myself and did some reverse engineering on what happened to me. And realized that I have a method to do it. And that's what I'm sharing in the book.
That's lovely. And I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to, because, during COVID, everybody needed to reinvent themselves. Yes. It's like, even me, I'm 27 and I shifted careers 4 times since I was 20. So it's something that, especially with the new world, with everything moving forward so quickly, you need to constantly reinvent yourself. Yes. So how do we do it? Let's get practical. Teach us.
So I will say that on average, a person reinvents themselves 12 times during their lifetime. Okay. So you're welcome. You're only at 4 and you think it's a lot.
It feels like a lot, because every time you need to learn everything. I've been an actor, I've been, now I'm a host, a content creator, training, and everything is every time you need to, so now I need to understand this field, and it's so complicated. So what is your method? I'm so curious.
Yeah. So you actually selected the first step, and probably because you did it, and you didn't even realize you work by a specific method. And the first one is a learning mindset. So the first thing is really to be able to learn something new that you're interested in or you want to work towards, to really have that skill. And when you don't need to learn something new, so for example, if you just got accepted to a job and you're currently doing it, a lot of us, what we do is 99% of the time, that's what we do. We're heads down and we're working. And the thought is to take a step back and really create a habit of learning new things. Mm-hmm. When you're on the job, you can learn more about your market, your customers, the industry, trends in your industry, so that you and your role can grow. When you want to become something new, then you need to learn something new, like you did. You learned new skills and you weren't afraid to jump in and start learning something new. So that's step number 1.
That's so smart. It's actually something, I think I read about it yesterday, that they say that in order to see things clearly, you have to take a step out.
Yeah.
So that's the smartest point of view. Okay, so a learning mindset, I love it. How do we continue?
The second step is to build your resilience, because a lot of the times when we're not at our best mentally, we don't see opportunities. We don't talk about ourselves in the same way. We don't open ourselves to meeting new people. We don't present ourselves in the best way we can. So to have a strong mental health is something that is important, and is also important to recognize when you're not 100% and what brings you back. So resilience is a physics term. You know, like imagine that stress ball when you squeeze it and then when you let it go. So some of them bounce back faster than others. This is exactly what happens to us. To really come back to what we were before this adversity happened to us. And the research shows, and I've done a lot of research when I wrote the book, the research shows that 25% of us don't come back to where we were, actually bounce. Better, bigger, better. And those people are the people that will start new ventures, will start, a nonprofit, will write a book. Like these are people that will say, okay, I have something that is in addition, and they have the mental strength to do more, to start new things and reinvent themselves in a bigger way. But it's only 25%. And what I'm trying with this book is that it will be more than 25%.
Yeah, it's actually what I wanted to ask you, because resilience is important. I can tell that for sure, especially since I was an actor. It's like probably the most important quality for an actor to be able to deal with that, because so much
deal
rejection.
With a no and then
so much rejection and come back and come back better. It's so important. So I can really relate to what you're saying, but I can also tell that a lot of people are having a lot of difficulties with it. So do you have any tips on how to increase your resilience?
Yeah, I think to notice when you're in a good spot and remember that moment, to remember what brought you to that good spot. Was it time with a specific person? Was it something that you did? Was it a break? And then start writing those moments so that when you're not in a good state, you go back and because when you're not in a good state, you're not even able to remember what brings you back. So to go back to that note, and I have a note on my phone. I can show you what brings me back in 5 minutes, in 15 minutes, in an hour, in a day, in a week. And that to pull that ability to bring you back. So for example, it can be a very good playlist, can be a meditation, can be a talk with a friend. It can be whatever you choose. And it's very, very personal, but the tip is to really identify when you're in a good place and then say, because a lot of times we're in a good place, we can say, oh, we're actually now, this is a good place. Like I'm happy now. And to try and reverse engineer what is in that situation and replicate it. It is very artificial, but replicate it when you need to bounce back.
I love it. So you said playlist, having a note, just understanding like what is that point?
Yeah.
Is it always something that you can do by yourself, or sometimes do you need help from outside?
No, absolutely. It is possible that there's a specific person that can bring you back. And that's a little bit of peek into step number 3, which is to build your personal board of directors. And it's important to have, I want to say, a range of people. Some of them can be that shoulder, someone that thinks you're the best thing on earth and they will remind you when you're down. But it can also be, and I have those people that give you tough love, that tell you, well, you're not doing so and so, and be very direct and not be afraid to criticize you and not be afraid that something will happen to you, but actually believe that you can grow from that feedback. So the help can be something that you can do for yourself, or if you want to pull in someone else from your network, from your personal board of directors. And that list of people, and if we're going to talk about step number 3, that is a list that needs to really, you need to maintain it. It's not the same list that you come up when you're, 20, and then they're going to be there for the rest of your life, because your needs change, you change as a person, and then that list of people needs to adjust with you.
So how do you know? Like, how do you know these are the good people for you?
Well, you know how specific people makes you feel. Mm-hmm. I have a specific person that is very strict with me. He's an ex-manager of mine. And when I need some honest advice, I contact him. And I know that this is not the person that will tell me how amazing I am. It's a person that really believes in me, knows what I'm good at and what I'm not. And then he can give me something that is honest. I don't come to him when I'm half broken and need a pep talk, because that's not the person he is, I go to someone else for that. So it's really important to choose what type of roles you have and make sure you have a variety of people that are there by your side to pull in whatever situation you need to pull them in.
That's so important, because I know so many people that tell me, like, I can't believe he didn't give me what I want. And it's like, every person can give you something different.
Yes.
And just thinking that someone can give you everything is just not real, it's unrealistic.
No, people are different.
So
and
I
also
love that.
situations are different. I believe like if I would meet someone in a different situation, they might bring something else, but you meet people in certain circumstances and that brings a little bit of a context into how they will treat you.
Mm-hmm. It seems like we have another guest on the show.
Yeah. We knew she'd come.
Yeah. It's always fun. That's what I love the most about the show On The Go is that things just happen and you need to just accept it. We have a dog on the show right now. Just so you know, everyone who's listening to this, there's another guest. So if you hear barking, yeah, that's her. Okay. So we talked about the board of advisors, which is so important. I don't think people actually realize how important this is. It's something I talk about a lot. Even the name of the show, The 5 People.
Yeah.
It comes from the sentence, you're the average of the 5 people surrounding you. So
I love that.
Yeah. So the group that's around you, it's so important because it really shows that this is what makes someone successful or not, like in so many researchers. So I really like that step. How do we move from there? Okay.
Yeah. So step number 4 is to have a role model. And it does not need to be a certain human, although it is helpful because then you can interview them, you can connect to them, you can ask how they got to where they are. But it can be also like a potato head that you take something from each
Different
person
people
that you know and create your role model. Like someone that you say, when I change after my self-reinvention, that's who I'm going to be. And when you look at that person, step number 5 is to actually move towards that person. And between 4 and 5, what you do is you actually unpack what that role model is. What are their skills? Who are their people? What do they do? What do they know? What do they learn? Where do they hang out? What are their hobbies? There's so many questions. And in the book, I think I listed like 150 questions, but probably your board of directors can help you figure out more questions. And then you create a learning list and a list of people you should meet. So that's where 1 and 2 are very useful, because when you walk towards the new you, and it can take a month, 2 months, or 2 years, then you learn things and you get to know more and more people. And so 4 is having a role model or creating one and unpacking them. And 5 is to work towards them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I get that. I have a question. It still connected a little bit to the previous one, but I know that's something that a lot of people are struggling with. One of the questions I get the most is people asking me, when you reach out to someone, like your board of advisors, how do you actually get them to help you? Because a lot of people think that they will just be a burden. So what do you do?
Yeah, I was actually asked I gave a talk, and someone from the audience said, how do you not feel that you're climbing on someone else on the way to your success?
Oh, I love that question.
Yeah. Okay. And it was very interesting because that meant that she's stopping herself because that's what she feels. So the secret is really to not think that you are, but also come prepared. When you come prepared, you're not a burden because you come with a set of questions that you already have done research for. The thought of you coming to a person called Access and saying, hey, can you tell me more about yourself? And you can Google that answer, not cool. But if you're really interested in that person, you know what they do, you know where they hang out, where do they network, you maybe attended their talk, you did some research and you put an effort to it, no one will come and say, oh, that person spent time learning more about me and what I care about, so I won't give them their time. No. And I think that really doing that homework makes you also feel that you're not stepping on someone else on the way. So go back, do Google, listen to them. If they appeared on a podcast or had an event and you were there, to come and bring context to when you contact them is really important. I actually had someone that listened to me on a podcast and then contacted me on LinkedIn because she wanted to object to something that I said.
Interesting.
And I thought it was so cool because she listened. She had an opinion and then she bothered coming and talking to me about it. And then we had an interesting conversation. And when I contact someone, I come with two questions because I don't want to waste their time. I don't want, to, overdo it. I also don't come with, hey, can you be my mentor? Or, hey, can you be on my board of advisors? No, you can take someone's advice without having them feel like they need to commit to something. Mm-hmm. And then when you ask one or two questions, if the conversation flows, great, you have a backup of a few more questions. Or you can follow up and say, thank you for your time. Do you mind answering me? Here are more questions. And then maybe they have time offline. But I think that preparation is such a big thing when you contact someone that you don't know, and it makes them feel, everybody likes to feel as if they're part of someone else's success. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So to do that is really, coming prepared, coming and showing why you need their help, and then getting back to them and saying, you helped me with something. You were part of something. Thanks for saying so-and-so. This is how I continued. Is very important because one, they makes them feel good, but two, they'll be there again if you need them.
That is such a good advice. Mm-hmm. And it's something that I can really relate to because I noticed, hosting this podcast, obviously, I need to reach out to a lot of guests. And I noticed that I don't know.
Yeah.
And I noticed that what works best usually is kind of it's really just doing really good research. If I know them really, really well when I reach out to them and I say hey, I noticed that you talk about this and this. I would love that we would talk about this and this. And it really shows that I've done my research. I'm serious about this. I'm not just, cold calling everybody and maybe someone will pick up. So it's really, really good advice. I love the way you put it.
Yeah.
So,
and I have another example.
Yes, please.
So I get a lot of DMs on my social. And so it's very hard for me to follow with everybody. And sometimes I miss. And so someone asked me a question and I haven't noticed it. Mm-hmm. It was actually a really interesting question. And I wanted to I would have answered if I have noticed it. And so what he did is he showed up to a LinkedIn live show that I was doing and asked the same question live. Mm-hmm. And I answered it. And then he connected with me on LinkedIn. And because he just DM'd me, but he actually connected. And then I saw that we had that exchange of information before. So I thought it was really smart that, he wanted to reach out. He wanted to connect with me. And then he tried one way. It didn't work. He showed up. So I think that, you can find those people that are your professional crush. Mm-hmm. And reach out to them in multiple ways. And if one way doesn't work, you can try. There are other ways that you can reach out to them.
That's a really good advice. Also, I noticed that the more times you reach out, the more chances they'll remember you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do it all the time. It's I post someone on my story and then I text them. And then a few weeks later, I text them something else. So it really works.
So you multiple times.
It works. It really, then he remembers me. I mean, there's someone that remembered me a year later, and then I brought him on my show and he said yes. So it's such a good advice. God, I'm going to make this into a video. I think I need to share it to everybody.
Good.
Okay, great. So we did step number 3, board of advisors. Step number 4, role model. How do we continue?
5 is working towards your role model. So that is connecting with people and having resources. So if there's a skill you need to learn, a course, a book, a podcast, a newsletter, whatever it is, but find a way that you learn and close that gap. There are people that suffer with imposter syndrome. This is a perfect list to actually show the before you and the after you. So once you check those abilities that you were missing, all of a sudden you have a list of a lot of things that you now are. So what is there to be afraid of to do the next big thing? You already closed the gap. You already know the people. You already have that skill. What's the worry? So I think that that is also an antidote for when you grow and you're afraid of your growth, the growth version of yourself, then this list is a perfect remedy for that situation.
That's amazing. And I think it's so important. So I want to stop a little bit about this point.
Sure.
How did you get to this method?
I reverse engineer situations that I've been through when I needed to reinvent myself. And I noticed that every time the change was for the better, that's how I worked.
Can you share the situation?
Yeah, sure. It was anything from where when we landed, and the story is in the first chapter of the book. When we landed in New York, because we moved here for my work, very close to me joining the company. It was the same company I worked in Israel, but when coming here was a new management, it was a new contract, everything was new. I had a new manager. And the new manager wanted to do something else, something that I did not know how to do. So I couldn't come and say, yes, let me do it. But we had a really good conversation where he asked me, what do I think I'm good at? And he liked how I told him and how prepared I was to be able to tell him what I'm good at. And then he gave me a different role than I came to do. It is very scary because I was on a work visa, something that, I could lose everything, not just my job, if I don't, grow and reinvent myself. So, so that kind of growth was very much something I had to do. But up until today, and he knows it's one of the best jobs I had. I had zero knowledge to actually do it, but I had some skills that I could bring from my past that could help me in that position. And also things that I didn't know. And then I was like, okay, I have to talk to, John. So John can give me some advice, and I need to talk to Emma, and Emma can close that gap for me and can give me some answers. And I obviously did research on my own and watched YouTube videos, but I did that. I immediately went into that learning mode so I can bump up and say, yes, I can do this, because other than his temporary belief in me, I needed to prove myself. So that was a big one. And it was also something that affected me personally, because it's not just a change in a career, and it's the first time that I've done that role. It's a change that could affect, my family. So it was really something that was very impactful in me understanding that I can reinvent myself probably in any situation because I have that method. So that's just one example. But the book...
Before, you said something so important. You said that it was about your family as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things that people say all the time, you need to have a very strong why. And you had an extremely strong why. So you had all the push you need in order to make it happen. So yeah, I wanted to pause on that to let people see that if they missed it, because it's so important. Okay, so you...
Yeah. So the thought, so about the family situation, by the way, so everybody needed to restart themselves here. My daughters didn't speak English. My husband left a job in Israel and needed to start from scratch in a new position. So everybody was in this starting from scratch, and I never wanted to burden with my situation. So it was very something that, I needed to lean on them while they were reinventing themselves. So it did require a lot of superpower from a lot of people in the process. But the book talks about other people. I'm not unique in this way. It talks about other people. I interviewed 200 people for the book. 20 stories, about 20 of them are in the book. These are people that, without knowing, followed the same method, and their stories and their reinvention is in the book when they used the same exact method. So they learned something new. They created a role model. They contacted their network. Like all of those things that we've just talked about, they've done too. So it's not really about being special, sorry to say.
Okay. Yeah,
but
that's
it is
good.
about following a method. And if you follow it, you'll be good.
I love it. So you said that you needed to step up for the role.
Yeah.
Afterwards, before you talked about imposter syndrome. When did that hit you?
So unfortunately, I do not suffer from imposter syndrome.
Unfortunately?
No, like to be able to
Talk about it.
To talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that when I try to unpack it, because one of the people that I interviewed for the book wrote a book about imposter syndrome, and I really wanted to understand that more. I think I'm more focused on the target and my excitement from the target to worry about what's happening. I think that's what it is. But when I have a method and I look at, okay, these are the gaps, and I always write it down. It's never in my head. I have a list of things I need to learn. And then once I learn them, I check that box. And when you have that black and white, if you need to just read it again before an interview, you have everything you needed. Everything you needed. And when you apply for a job, no one really expects you to have 100% of all the things that are in the job description, because otherwise you'll be bored and you'll leave them. No one wants to invest in hiring you and then you'll leave them because it's, you've done this 1,000 times. But they need you to tick most of the boxes. So if you go and you actually don't have a role model, but you actually have a job description, you can go and say, okay, the job descriptions, here are the skills I need to do here. And sometimes it's actually written. And then just go and say, okay, what will it take for me to take that job and actually do it and actually close the gaps on the skills? Do I have it? And if I don't, can I learn it? Can I take a class? Can I watch a video? Can I listen to a podcast? Can I meet someone that already does it and they can give me those resources and the advice? Or can someone from my personal board of directors can come and give me tips, or people that they know or their network can serve me in closing that gap? So when you have that gap and you close it, why would you be afraid to jump?
That's such a good advice. Okay, so step number 5.
5 is working towards the new you with meeting people and getting new skills. And the last one is called pack your baggage. And we've worked really hard up until step number 6. And step number 6 really talks about any past experience that you've gone through, and you need to really think what was good about it, what was bad about it, who did you meet, and who were you before and you are after. And when you do this list, you are able to take that into your next job. So for example, before my last job, the maximum people I've managed was 30. In the last job, I actually managed 70. So now you can say before and after, I learned to manage more people. Before my last job, I never worked in a specific industry. Now I can say that I do. Before the last job, I didn't know John and Sarah. Today, they're close enough to me that I can consider them as my mentor, as my advisors, as my personal board of directors. And unpacking those questions, and in the book, there are exactly which questions you need to answer. It makes you very much part of the story, or makes you the story, versus things that happened to me. Nothing happened to you. You were there.
You created it.
Yeah. And you were a part of it, and you can take credit for things. And even bad experience can be on that list of, okay, I will never put myself in that situation. Or when I identify something like this, I will react differently. It really reframes everything that happened, good or bad, into experiences that you can put on your resume, things that you can talk about when you're being interviewed for a job, things that you can be proud of, people that are now part of your network. So all of that baggage that you had puts you in creates a different story, a reframe of your story. And I say this a lot. In my book, this chapter is called Packing Your Baggage, but I met a friend, I told her about this, and she called it's actually making you a victor instead of a victim. And it's a better name for that chapter, I must admit. But it is exactly that. And a lot of people are going through layoffs now, but even if you were laid off, what was in that? So instead of saying that story, you can actually say, yes, layoffs happened in the company, but before that, I never had that title. Before that, I didn't know John and Sarah. Before that, I didn't know a specific, tool that you used. There's so many things that you accumulated, and that is a much, much bigger, better story that you can tell yourself, obviously, but you can tell others, and that's a new you. That's a different you. That's a bigger you. So that is really important. And the pack your baggage is really important. I do find people that jump into the next or rush into the next job before they do it. And some of those people go back to the workplace. They leave a specific job, move to the next employer, and then come back, because when they packed their baggage, they didn't notice that actually a lot of the things that they didn't like exist in the new job. And John and Sarah are no longer in the new job. They're actually in the previous job. And those are boomerang employees. Those are the ones that go and come back. Now, if you made it a better job for yourself, or you got a bigger salary, if you needed to go through that versus just talk to your manager, okay, good. But sometimes it's not for the better. Sometimes you lost a certain position, you miss working for a certain manager that you like just because you jumped. And it's really important, if you do that exercise, to actually understand, is it the right thing for me to move right now? Is it something that is really better for me in the next job? Or I can actually reinvent myself, but do it in the same job? Because reinvention in the same workplace is much easier. You can take the credit that you already done, the hard work, the relationship that you already have, and use it to bump in the corporate ladder. And a lot of the times when I reinvented myself, I noticed that I can actually grow bigger if I stay with the company. And the personal board of directors that I had within the company, they were the ones who were telling me, hey, do you know there's an open position in that group? You should apply. Something that I haven't noticed, or they didn't really talk about it because they were looking very kind of confidentially. So it is easier to grow internally. There are more boxes you check because you know the company, you know the people, you have that credit. Do that exercise of the baggage, and sometimes you'll realize that you're in a very, very good spot and you don't need to rush and move.
It's like so many people just don't realize that their life are actually pretty good.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There's actually an exercise in the book that's called Am I Done? And I've done it multiple times when, I was at a job, I didn't look for a new job, and someone contacted me, and it sounded like it's, an appealing position. And then I looked at the things I needed. When I joined the company, I said, okay, these are the things I'm going to do. Did I actually do them? Because you want to be proud of what you've done. You want to be able to say, ta-da, right? And if you don't, and if you're not done, create that list. What did I come here to do? Did I do it? And if you haven't, I suggest you stay, because it's a much better story to come and say, I came to do X and I did it, and that's why I moved on. Versus, I came to do X, well, I didn't really do it, but I moved on to the next job. That's not a good story, not to yourself and not to someone else that you need to tell that.
That's a great advice. Well, we only have a few minutes left.
Okay.
So I think what I want to ask you is, let's say that there is someone who is listening to this right now, and he needs to reinvent himself. And he listened to the method, but he's scared.
Yeah.
He's scared because,
Change is scary.
Change is scary. I mean, you and I can really relate to it because we've done a lot of changes in our lives. So it's like, yeah, okay, we can handle it. But there are a lot of people that for them, it's like, what? You're talking about this? This is just crazy talk, you know? So what do you recommend in order to overcome it?
Yeah, I think, first of all, change is scary, even for people who've done it.
Absolutely.
Every
time. Every time.
But do you get a rush from it, like an adrenaline rush, and you're excited? Like I mentioned to you, that probably that excitement is where my imposter syndrome disappears. But change is tough. I think I would start with the personal board of directors, and many people tell me they don't have one. And I do this exercise of, okay, if you close your eyes, I'm not going to hypnotize you. And you're on a red carpet, and who is there to applaud you? Who are the people who will always have your back and be in your corner, from work, from your family, from your friends, from any people that you've met in the past? Who are the people who will give you that push of, yeah, you could do it, go on the red carpet? And if you can, and I'm sure everybody has at least one person that they can envision clapping.
Your hair is on the mic.
Okay. That they can re-envision that situation. There are people who clap there, and those are the first people who can help you make that leap. Change is exciting. Change brings a lot of opportunities, more than we actually know. That moving towards the new you is really exciting. It's where growth happens. It's where, you'll meet new people. You'll be something you weren't before. You'll be very proud of yourself. A lot of things, positive things, come from change. But if you need that nudge, then contact that person who will clap for you on the red carpet first.
Great. Love it. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Material. Okay, so where can we find it? Tell us about it.
Yeah.
Starting from scratch.
I'll take it. So starting from scratch is on all the online stores, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, worldwide, as well as what's exciting, specifically in the US, there's a website that you can go and find it in any local store, so support small businesses. So you can do that too. And you can also stop at a local store and get it. And all the links and a lot of materials, worksheets to support your starting from scratch journey is on my website, which is startingfromscratchthebook.com.
Love it.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was such a great interview. And thank you guys for listening or watching this episode. I hope you had at least a little bit fun as I did. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys on the next episode. Bye, guys.